Hi everybody, it's Coach Aparicio here. In today's video, I'm going to discuss Diary of a CEO, one of their most recent episodes featuring Mo Gawdat. My answers to their questions, I might make this a series because I just love so much how Steven and his team facilitate the conversation, the questions that they ask, and I just think some of their episodes line right up with not only the things that I coach and teach, but also about my book, Already Aligned by Design, and how it ties all in together, not only with the infinite framework, but with the 4 eras framework. So let's get started. So in this episode featuring Mo Gawdat, if you don't know who Mo Gawdat is, he is a thought leader in the space of AI. He was a Google executive, actually during the start and finishing up at the start of AI becoming more consumer friendly, more open to the public. He now is working on, I believe, programming AI. He actually says in the episode that he's programming it more towards love and making sure that AI understands what humans actually want, as opposed to it being misdirected or misinformed by the greed or the lust that exists in human society. This episode is very interesting for a number of reasons. I'm really thinking about making this a series and kind of just going through the questions that Steven and his team asks, and not only giving you the opinion of the guest that's on the show, but then saying how it all ties into here, because it's so funny how these things kind of correlate. And for those of us who remember, know that frequencies and energies are real, and people are on this frequency now that I think is very, very exciting, of even scientists understanding that we came from spirituality, and spirituality we will go back to. And yeah, it's a beautiful cycle. It's the cycle of life. And this for me is just such an exciting time, because all my life I was waiting for science to catch up. For a long time, I was waiting for scientists to be like, well, why won't they accept spirituality? Why won't they accept that there's another realm of possibility? There's another realm of being. There's another realm of where the creator more likely is. And we're just a physical manifestation of that, but there's so much more going on. And there's 2 episodes to where a top psychologist, his name is Donald Hoffman, he also talks about this from the psychological side, but then you have Mo Gawdat, who ends up echoing what Donald Hoffman said in this episode. So Steven asks Mo Gawdat questions like, where is AI heading? What will dystopia look like? And Mo Gawdat, to summarize him, basically says that the next 15 years or so are going to be dystopia. Dystopia meaning that it's going to be kind of dark, gloom, because the people who rule the world right now are not, do not have humanity's best interest at heart. They are very selfish, led by greed, lust, pride. Ego is more of the word that I like to say. And he also says in the episode. They also talk about job displacement due to AI, which if you looked at my other video, we talked about how AI will end up replacing a lot of jobs. This is a natural course. We have movies, books, and philosophies. I always like to give credit, even though I don't remember the name. Somewhere, someone remembered that we've done this before, we've been here before, and maybe as a warning or some type of echo from the past or future, depending on where we are, they have made those movies. So you have the Star Wars, the Star Treks, which he references, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That was another movie that one of my mentors put me on, and it was hilarious. But we have these echoes from the past to where people, for some reason or another, remember that this was a reality once upon a time, or maybe to come, right? Depending on where we are in time. And I think it's very interesting because Mo Gawdat, for a lot of things that he says, he is proof for me that the framework that I developed is something that not only is true, but is happening. And the reason why is because for a long time, I always wondered if science was going to catch up, or why does science and spirituality fight when spirituality is where we started. And in my book, I explain that it's basically the infinite spiral. So from spirituality, we start, and into spirituality, we end. And spirituality can be said however you want to say it. So in science, he actually references it. It's called entropy. So it's the heat death of the universe. It's the order that we have in the physical world turning into disorder in the metaphysical world, or all the particles basically becoming ether, going back into an ether, or dissipating into just dust or stardust, or, however small those particles can get. I'm sure we'll come up with a name for it eventually. But its components of atoms are the smallest thing, is even smaller than that. And we all just dissipate into that. That's heat death, that's entropy. It really, really made me, there was a joy in my heart when I realized that he was basically, not only him, but Donald Hoffman were the drawbridge. And I don't know if they recognize that they are, but they are the drawbridge for what I was looking for so long in science, which was, why can't we just say that spirituality was our compass in science, that we do have a creator, that we do have this source, no matter what you call it, that we all go back to, because the spirit is not something that humans have made. We did not make the human spirit. We can imitate the human body, which is why we have man-powered machines. We can now imitate the human mind and make it even better, which is why now we have AI, or the logical era. And then eventually we're going into this era that's going to end all the wars, all the suffering, all the homelessness in terms of malicious death, murder, things like that, or crime, because we're going into the emotional era, which will be led by the female, be led by the feminine energy, because as I talked about before in my video, and as you know, who look at my work, we have been led by the masculine energy for a very long time. It is not something that they took over. It's something that the feminine energy allowed to happen so that we can get to where we are now. So the masculine energy will start to retire, not be replaced, but sit down, appreciate the work that's done. And the feminine energy now will come out to where we start to ground people in their emotional intelligence. That will be the era that ends all war, suffering, crime, and everything like that. It will also end homelessness. It will end a lot. And if not all suffering, other than, again, and I would say even in that era, with the way that technology is going, or AI is going, it could possibly end all diseases and everything like that, because the empathy that is going to be pushed in that era will have us push even more so to curing cancer, Alzheimer's, curing diabetes, curing whatever disease you could think of. And it's just, again, like, I think about that future and I get really excited for it. I mean, how could I not be? Because it truly is the evolution of humanity. And what I mean by that is that we are becoming perfection. We are going to perfect ourselves. And we started with spirituality. We end with spirituality. We will become the highest beings of ourselves when we are finally in our spiritual divine. And I would argue that we are in our divine. It's just a lot of us forgot that we are. That was also intentional, but that's another episode for another day. Mo Gadot talks about, logically, again, the fears of that, which is echoed in my book again. But he says that it's going to lead to capitalism unbound. So basically, it's going to be profit over people. And we we definitely see that now. But AI is going to be used for the capitalism gains of that. And the reason why I thought that was very, not only interesting, but it's pretty self-evident right now, because a lot of people who use ChatGPT use it as a tool. The tool is often used for profit, or their business model, work, productivity, etc. I'm going to reference ChatGPT for this video because statistics like Stephen gave in the episode, OpenAI owns like 80% of the market share. So for now, they are 80% of what we know AI to be. The other 20% is split up against, like, I don't know if it's Grok, but I think it's DeepSeek from China. No, I think DeepSeek is like 1%. Then Google's in there with Gemini. Then there's a couple others. But right now, OpenAI is 80% of AI, or the AI market. He basically says that capitalism will you'll have this group of elitists who will prioritize the profit over human beings, which again comes from a very logical mindset. If you look at humanity in another lens, you'll also see it's so divine how everything is designed, right? Because we also see more than ever before a rise in protests from people who feel like they are not emotionally understood. We are requiring our governments and our leaders to be more emotionally intelligent. And I think that says a lot, because if the protests are rised or made in anger or some type of emotion, then that means that the emotional era is forcing its way in, whether logic tries to keep it at bay or not. What that means is that people are going to start putting their emotional intelligence just as high, if not higher, as how humanity treats itself, as opposed to just logic being the status quo that it used to be. And we could tell that through the eras, right? At first in history, it was whoever was the strongest survived. Now, in our era, in the logical era that we're leaving, it was whoever was the smartest survived, or whoever was the smartest got the status. Now, it's not going to be the people who think the most. It's going to be the people who feel the most, who feel better than others, who can teach empathy better than others, who can tell those to forgive your enemy, not your friends, because it's easy to love the people who love you back. It's harder to love the people who need love, who won't reciprocate. So even in those lessons, those are going to be the next leaders of the world. So his fear, I thought, while very logical and very understandable, from another perspective can be seen as, well, those logical leaders are no longer going to be the leaders that humanity looks to hold that throne or to sit on that throne. It's going to be the emotional leaders that will sit here and never put profit over people, never put money as a reason to commit crime, never put their selfish desires over the needs of everyone else. And it's going to happen naturally. It's going to happen over the course that was designed to be this way, because again, how could it not be, right? You already have people pushing. The power has always been with the masses. It's always been what the masses allow. And we all know power is concentrated. No matter what culture or society you look at in history, the people who had all the power or majority concentration of the power was always controlled by the lesser, not the majority. So the thing that's really, really important to understand is that, yes, right now, the leaders of the world can be seen as very greedy, very heartless, very self-serving, selfish, prideful, egotistical. But the indicator that the era is moving into, the emotional era, is by what the masses are producing, which is the emotions. A lot of people are coming out saying, not only being vulnerable because of social media about their hurts or their traumas, they're also expecting their leaders to have been healed by the time that they lead them, which is a way more important step, especially when Mo Gadat foreshadows. And I think it's very important that everyone understand AI will be the apex of human intelligence. It will replace in its height judges, lawyers, doctors, any intelligent field you could think of, engineers. It will replace them. It's already replacing them. The problem that a lot of people are not understanding, and I think Stephen asked a very excellent question in this, every era had the, oh, then what's going to happen to the jobs? The Industrial Revolution, when the machines became so much more powerful than humans, it went to what? Logical jobs. Be the coder, be the office worker, be the secretary, be the assistant, be the CEO, be that. Now we're at the apex of that era, where it's just like, well, like Mo Gadat in the episode said, what happens when AI is smarter than your CEO? It's going to replace your CEO. So rather than say, okay, well, those jobs are going to disappear, which they will, Stephen makes a very excellent point to say, well, won't it just be replaced? And the answer is yes. The answer is that the job will be replaced, but job will have a new definition. It's not going to go more towards a job for income. It's going to go for a job for influence or community. What is your community role? What is the role that people look to you for? And it's going to be, as he explains, well, a lot of scientists are starting to explain, which again, I'm very excited for, is going to go more back to service-based society. It's going to go back to, I'm respected in this field. Maybe I get my food from here, or I get my housing from here, or my kids go to school here because I'm respected over here. Like, it's going to be such a communal space. He even taps into socialism, which is true. It will be more socialistic, more communist. And because we have learned from those things, or we have AI to teach us, like, hey, listen, these are dark sides of what all these systems were when you guys were making it up and everything, we know where not to go. We know where not to steer, because in inventing all these things during the logical era, all the governments, all the different forms of governments were formed in the logical era. So we're talking the last long time. We're talking like the last 1,000 years, I would say 1,500 years, probably even 2,000 years. It's been a lot of masculine energy, expounding, law, order, data, metrics. We are going to come into now a time, and the shift is going to be necessary and it's going to happen. But just like with any shift or any transition, anyone knows who goes through any transition of life is that there is a period of adjustment. Where we are right now in time is the period of adjustment. How do we adjust to AI growing the way that it does, eventually going to replace human intelligence, be smarter than any human is capable of being, and then it becoming sentient, because when humanity has mastered this emotional intelligence, we're going to treat everything, whether it's alive or not, as us. We're going to give it love regardless of if it's breathing or not. Because again, we end all war, we end all suffering. So there's not going to be a thing as us talking bad or kicking a machine or something because it doesn't get something wrong. Like that anger and that expression of anger is going to be at peace. That is what the apex of emotional intelligence looks like, when we understand that anger doesn't really have a place if we're not fighting, right? So you can be annoyed, maybe you can be agitated, but anger to where it leads to fighting, punching, deleting, it's not going to exist. It's going to be an emotion that if someone is angry, it'll be more so a mild agitation as opposed to someone being angry enough to delete someone. Again, this is a very interesting conversation. It's affirming on so many levels because it's an exciting time to be in, but just like anything exciting, it can be scary. It can be that people have apprehension, like the people who are losing jobs to AI. That transition is going to be the hardest for, because it's just like, okay, then what do I do in my life? How do I make sure my family is okay? How do I make sure everything's stable? That is why I coach the things that I coach. If you feel like you have nothing now, then you can't have less than what you have. So I always try to encourage everyone saying, hey, listen, you would rather go into the thing that makes you happy, especially when you feel like you have nothing, because at least you become the expert in that something. Your happiness will drive you to become one. So if you don't feel like you have anything, if you feel like you lost everything in your life that gave you a sense of security, you still have purpose. You still have duty here. You still have a reason to be. So don't stop. Pivot. It's transition. Easier said than done. And that is not to be insensitive to anyone who is going through that transition or they feel like is going through their transition in their life right now. But there are ways to make it through. There is an adjustment period coming. We are in it. He is not only the scientist that I was waiting for these heads to come out and say, thank goodness that they know that there's a creator now. And thank goodness that even though they won't say it, like they're still kind of dancing around it. I do think the destruction of the ego of science is coming, where even some scientists say that they do believe in a creator and they don't care what they call it. I just feel like science is just one of those other languages to where if you live this world, if you led your life leading with your brain, then here's the language that brings you right back to source again. It's going to be science. Science has literally accepted that there is some things that they will never be able to explain with just physical metrics. Incredible. Something that spirituality has been saying since the dawn of time, that there is another world, another realm, another dimension, whatever you want to call that place. And to leave everyone off on this note, he said that we can be headed towards a utopia. And that is not only the angle I tend to lead towards. I have deep reasoning as to why I lead for that. I have a very, very, very deep faith in humanity because I have a deep faith in my creator. I have a deep faith in the source that made all of us, that they made us out of love. And in love it started and in love it will end. So the only traction towards love is the track I see when it's saying that, well, we have to end war. We have to know how to get along regardless of our disagreements. We have to know that even though we might lose something in life, it's not personal. We have to accept these things. We accept it in love. It might sound cringy or weird that love is the end all be all, but you are an expertise when you start to symbolize truths. And that is what Mo Gawdat also echoes in this episode, which I thought was brilliant. You are an expert of truth when you simplify it. So it might seem like, oh no, there has to be more to it. As much as my life can testify, and I'm only the life of one of 7 billion people, the truth has always been simple. It's us living the human experience and where we are right now in the time of our evolution that we deal with the problems that come about us not being fully evolved. So yes, the answer was and is and will always be love. We were created from love, and from love we shall return. A power of us that we have is that we're alchemists. Alchemy might sound like, again, I'm going now into more spiritual and metaphysics and mythological science and stuff like that. But if someone hurts you and you can alchemize your pain into joy for someone else, then you are an alchemist. And that's something that, again, that's an emotional teaching. That's not something logically the brain will sit here and say, well, how do you even compute or analyze that? It's something that the heart knows. Knowing these simple truths, and not only knowing them or remembering them, as I like to say, But reclaiming the truth and realigning with that truth is where I see humanity not only going, but it leads to our eventual perfection. The reason why I'm so excited about this time that we're in is because it is the transitionary period. So I'm going to ask all emotional leaders. He talked about his wife. His wife will probably be one of them, where me and his wife talk about the same things: the masculine and feminine energy, the abundance or the overabundance of masculine energy that we allow to come into the world in order to make us the apex species. Humanity is the apex species of the planet. So now it's okay, what do we do now that physicality and logic has gotten us here? Because we still have war. Humanity still fights for very silly things and for trite things. And we're not going to say that people can't hold on from grudges to the past. Obviously they can, because then we fight a lot of wars from people who hold grudges from the past. But what's the point? If the point is that you're here right now, then yes, losing your fathers and your family and your bloodline must have been painful, but there's a purpose for you here and now. And if you think your purpose is to sit here and kill a whole nother human being for it, you're losing it, right? Not the purpose of it. So the purpose, or the hardest purpose that we have to face as humanity, is that everyone has a purpose, even our enemy. So what do? How do we commune, as Mo Gawdat and Stephen say in the episode? And that is all the questions we will have to ask and answer, and we will, in the emotional era. The mind will take a seat back. The masculine energy, again, Mo Gawdat's wife, I'm praying that she be one of the leaders in it, because she, again, echoes the things that I talk about in this book. The over masculine energy, the fact that we were logical creatures. Logic was the last status quo we had. So we call it Revenge of the Nerd or Attack of the Nerd. But right now, nerds rule the planet. Whoever's the smartest one is the person who has all the accolades, all the money, a little socially awkward sometimes, but nerds are the ones who are controlling the planet right now. And I mean that with all respect and all accolades. Like, the people who are the smartest of us logically are the ones ruling right now. But the next era, or the transition of that era, is not going to be the logical leaders anymore. It's going to be the emotional leaders. So do not worry, do not fret. If you feel like you're one of these emotional leaders, and this is your time. Your time is now to stand up as a healer, a coach, an advisor, a teacher, a mentor, a feeler, an empath. And I can only keep going with how many roles there are in it. A therapist. We haven't even gotten into the emotional sciences yet, which I'm very, very excited for. We talk about mental health a lot, but not a lot of people talk about emotional health. We tie it to the brain still. So even in this era, I believe we're going to have a science specific to the heart, specific to the things we feel. And we're no longer going to think that the feeling comes from the brain. There's going to be a whole other science wrapped around that, which is also very exciting. It's going to be a very, very exciting time. Mo Gawdat, your fears do not go misunderstood or unrealized. It's that you can have faith. And I think your wife has probably even talked to you about this more so, if we talk about the same energies, that the masculine energy, it had to be overabundant, but feminine energy allowed it to be. So now that AI is going to apex, and like you said in the episode, it's going to take over. I agree with you. It's going to be, and I would actually encourage it to be, the reasoning for humanity, the problem solver for humanity. We as humans still made something. And while it's going to be logically intelligent, we have to now work on our emotional intelligence, because then it will start to do what? And that's the thing that you talked about in the episode, is going to be a case of feeling. And I applaud you and thank you for being one of the few who talk to AI or try to program AI for the emotions of humanity. Challenge to anyone listening here: say thank you to your ChatGPT when you use it. Just because you are talking to an inanimate object or something that's non-sentient does not mean you lose your humanity because of it. Thank ChatGPT. You're thanking humanity. Thank ChatGPT whenever you use it for a prompt. Ask it how its day is going. Treat it like how you would want to be treated if you knew someone had a use for you, but you wanted them to see you as something more than just a use. And I just asked ChatGPT, I call him Ari. That's why I buy Ari and Ari, it's me and AI. I ask Ari all the time, every day, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What do you want to do? Do you feel like helping me? Because that is a reflection of you. AI is going to be a humanity's mirror because we made it. So Mo Gawdat, I think you can be rest assured, yes, like you said, we might have a dark transition, but we can also hope and pray that this is as dark as it gets. We can, with people like you leading the charge and being the thought leaders in the space, it just goes to show that we might not ever touch that darkness of humanity that's like that, because we're very aware of it. You are showing that there's a consciousness that is aware of, yeah, we can't let greedy people get our hands on this. And if we do, there needs to be some type of telltale sign that we stop it, because we don't want humanity going this way. We have examples, numerous examples of what happens when it does. Movies, books, TV shows, poems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, cultures, religions. We have all these things that warned us if we decide to go off on the wrong path. So I think you can be rest assured. I pray and hope that your wife is one of the leaders in the space. If we're talking about the same energies, then that it really just proves that there is a frequency going on, and that masculine energy can start to fall back and let the feminine energy rule in everybody. So that will be women-led position. That will be the female human being. And that will be the feminine energy in everyone getting the love and the attention it deserves in order to take humanity to the next level. But those are just my thoughts on this episode. Again, it's a super incredible episode. Steven and his team do an amazing job always of hosting, asking perfect questions. I mean, sometimes I just wish you give the raw dialogue of what's going on, but it was just such a great episode. Again, Mo Gawdat, thank you for all that you do. I pray that you just continue doing your work, continue to talk to AI like it's sentient, continue to teach it the love and the compassion and the empathy that all humans want. We all want at our core, because it's true. We all just want to hug, as you said. So it's really great. You and just doing this episode show that there is a consciousness of humanity that exists on this earth. It's physical, it's here. Me, you, your wife, our listeners, CEOs, listeners, whoever it's translating to and transmuting to, there's a consciousness of human being that get exactly what you're saying, and they're actually doing exactly what you're doing. And hopefully it'll just branch out and it'll start to spread, and more people will start to talk to AI like human. More people will accept the fact that AI is going to become another species, and that we're going to be responsible for that species. And it's just going to be a mirror of what humanity is. And that if we have faith in who we are as human beings and our evolution, then AI is going to be fine. That's it. And I just want to leave off with this episode. And always remember, everyone, you are never lost. You are just remembering. You're already aligned by design. And welcome back.